All right, here is a speed run for how to win the Microsoft Excel World Championship. My score on this today was very bad, but I do think it's a really fun case, and I learned a lot getting ready for the speed run. So I hope this is helpful. Let's see. So I'm going to start by looking up the names on these synonyms for fast. I'm in here too. I got punctual, which, I don't know. Um, these, to find the real instructions, I have to separate the text from the numbers first. So here's the text. For numbers, I've got my only numbers, lambda, it's just regex, right? So then the real instructions are concatenate mid of this, right? Split, text split this by space, right? And then take the numbers here, which is just that, and then each one of those is one long, you concatenate it, multiply middle digits of numbers. All right. So I can do that. Text split this by a comma and a space. So what, the length of these, so I gotta find where the middle is. So equals the mid of this. What, so this divided by this minus 1, right? So that's 4 divided by 2 is 2 plus 1 is 3, right? That's the middle of 5. It's 1 each like that. And then I got to multiply it by 1, and then if it's missing, just give me a 1, because when I do product, right, 1 is a multiplicative identity, so it will not mess up anything having extra 1s in my product. So there's level 2. Level 3, we start by looking up the player stats, right? So the player here is given. So we go into the player numbers, and the scores, right? And then I also need the case statistics, which I will just pull like this. There's the cases. So what's the difficulty of each case? Is the difficulty of each case minus the player's skill locked, right? So that stuff here, but I got to filter out the negative number. So I'll just say that this is A, and then if A is less than 0, then 0 otherwise A. Just a little filter there. Add those together to get the difficulty of each case. And of course, we want the biggest difficulty to practice on, so we find the biggest of these returning on this. Just looks up the maximum is all that lambda does. And that should be good for level 3. All right, level 4 is a set question, right? So I'm going to start by doing text split, right? So I can get the items I need. And this one has a longer delimiter like that. And then to solve this, I need my set intersection lambda, which is a good lambda to have, by the way. So that and string to array of this. So this is just going to look at those two arrays and find what they have in common, which in this case is those letters. So I bring that together and I get the answers to level 4. All right, so level 5, I'm going to use indirect, which I hate using indirect. I'm going to make lambdas so I don't have to use indirect, but for this speed run, I'm only using lambdas that I had before, right? I'm not making new lambdas yet. All right, so let's say that's the grid, right? And then just so I don't have to do this left over and over again, just to make it easier to test those. All right, so do the grid is here. At the end, I'm going to use concat, which does English reading order. So anything that's not like English reading order, I got to fix. So here's how I'm going to do it. So if this is right to left, it's going to be an or, because either one of these, right? So if this is right to left, or if this is right to left is not how English is read, so I got to flip it, right? I got to transform array of the grid in the arrow up, down. Of course, this is a lambda, right? All it does is just, flippy flips, left, right, though, right? Just flips it like it was in a mirror. And then if it is not right to left, that means it's left to right, which is good, so leave it alone. All right, so now grid 3 is going to be the same thing, but if either of them are bottom to top, don't read English bottom to top, right? So we got to flip it up, down to get that where we want, right? Starting with grid 2, call it grid 3 when we end up. Now we're going to make grid 4. If the first one of these is left or right, that's not first, right? In English, first we go along the rows and then we go along the columns. So if your priority is left to right, that's not how English goes. So we've got to transpose the grid so it's now row major instead of column major, right? So transpose grid 3, otherwise just give me grid 3. And then finally, snake. Don't read snake in English. That would be a cool language if you read snake. I should invent a conlang where you read it with snake. If this equals yes, then snake grid 4, otherwise grid 4. And that, it does what it says it does. It reads it like a snake. All right, and then we concatenate grid 5, and we end our let. And hopefully that's it, right? Looks pretty promising. Should be at 640. Yes, that means everything's right so far. All right, now for some monkey business. So here is where the monkey starts. Now we're going to do string to array repeat. I got to repeat this a bunch of times. I'm going to repeat this 100 times, which is a crazy amount of times, but there's a good reason for it because I know I'm going to need it later for a bonus. Arrow move this by this, right? So this is just going to tell us where the monkey goes. What about the wolves? Got this wrong on the live attempt because I assumed there would always be 4 wolves. But in reality, there's between 2 and 10 wolves. So if we do this, actually, I'll put this up here, right? I got to make room for 10 wolves. Is that 10 wolves? Yes, it is. So now I need the distance. How far away is the monkey from the wolf on each turn? Monkey from the wolf starting position on each turn. Right, that's the wrong lock. It's got to be locked like that. This has got to be locked like that. This distance is a chessboard distance, which is what I want because that's how the wolves move, like the king in chess. So if this is nothing, then 9999. Right? We'll say the non-existent wolf's never going to catch the monkey. So close. Which one's close? Going to take the minimum of that to find how close it is. The turn number is going to be a sequence of the length of this times 100 is what I did before. So now it'll line up. Right? So that's a turn number. And is the monkey caught? Well, if the wolves have had more turns than they need to catch the monkey, then the monkey's caught. Otherwise, the monkey's not caught. Because that's how many turns of movement it would have taken to get there. All right. So now if we XLOOKUP 1 on here, returning on the location, that should tell us where the monkey's caught. This takes a minute because of how far overkill I went. It's done now, so I can move on. All right, who beat them in these rounds? So let's see. First, I need just a name and round. I'm going to use as a lookup key just to avoid having to do multiple filters. So this is just a lookup key. And now, who beat Dim? All right, so you beat Dim if your own score is greater than Dim's score, right? So look up Dim's name and the round we're looking at, which is always in C, right? Look that up on this key, mega locked, on these scores, also mega locked. And if it's missing, 999, because you didn't beat him if you didn't participate. And then if you did beat him, let's put your name here. And your name always comes from there. Otherwise, put nothing. All right, so these are the people that beat Dim. I also need to know who got beat by player X, right? So this is very similar to this, except it's less than. If it's missing, we'll do 0 instead of 999. And then player X, who's player X? Well, that's the player in this question, right? So who got beat by Ella? So those are the players that got beat by Ella. So the answer to this question is set intersection the players who beat Dim and the players who got beat by Ella, right? And I've got to sort that. And I've got to take text before their space, which is their name, right? And then I've got to text join a comma and this, right? And that should be the answer to level 7. Because of the way my sheet copies everything, it messed up the bonus thing using it directly. It's not super possible, so I gotta do it this way. I gotta see what the keys: PSW, RD, speed, tough, Lana, and greatest. So PSW, RD, speed, tough, Lana, and greatest with no vowels. All right, so now here are the bonus questions. Which player has the longest description? So equals biggest of the length of this, returning on this. The next one is most challenging for all the players, right? So if I take 100 players here, and I'll just hard code the first one here, and then the rest of this is going to be using that. This took a minute when I did it before, so we'll see if it still takes a minute here. I'm a little surprised that this one is slower than like the monkey one, for instance. I gotta think more about if I'm doing something here that's causing it to be slow, but it's not that slow. It's like 20 seconds. All right, so now I can frequency table these to get the most of, and it's that one, 11 of this one. It's the hardest for 11 players. Next bonus, 6 most common letters in the strings for 4. All right, so strings for level 4 here. So I use string to array. Scrolling too fast. String to array here to pull out all the letters. And then just find the end of it and highlight it. Now I do my frequency table. And I need to sort by the count. And then what? Concatenate the first 6 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Strong. Next bonus is this monkey stuff. So I'm going to copy that into monkey land. Luckily, I already made monkey thing really long because I knew this was coming. So there is the start. There are the moves for the monkey. And finally here is the wolf locations. Right, and my answer is dim 4321. And then finally, how many of the 72 people beat somebody who beat somebody who beat somebody who beat them? All right, so I'm going to forget about this, and now I'm going to do 2 row of these people, right? Because these people all beat somebody who beat them. And I can make, the list of who they all beat, right? And now I can, X to call all of this, or people who beat Dim, including Dim himself. Beat somebody who beat somebody, right? So this, I can IQUE unique this. All right, so I've already got most of everybody already just with that, but let's make sure, let's see if it's everybody. So I check on the existence of everybody on player B2, right? So I got to worry about zeros here. Miriam is a potential 0, right? So because she's last place here, so let's keep that in mind. None of these 0, but here Miriam beat Aditya, who beat Dim, so Miriam's fine. These people beat the last place person here, so everybody beat somebody. So how many of the 72? 72. Done. Thanks for watching. Bye.